Help me in welcoming Trey Taylor, the managing director of Trinity Blue consultancy firm that provides executive coaching and strategic planning to C-suite leaders. He is also the Chief Executive Officer of Taylor Insurance Services and the founding partner of Ascend Partners. And lastly, he is also the author of the insanely popular bestseller, A CEO Only Does Three Things, which we'll talk about in the show quite a bit. He holds a bachelor's degree from history from Emory University in Atlanta, a Juris Doctor degree in tax and corporate transaction from Tulane University School of Law in New Orleans, and has completed additional coursework at the St. Peter's College of Oxford University in the UK, the Catholic School of Management at Northwestern University, and the Georgia Institute of Technology. In 2013, Trey was named one of Georgia's Trends magazine's 40 Under 40. Additionally, Trey received his Cheers for Peer MVP Giver, Employee Recognition Award, and Happiest Company Award in 2014 from Tiny HR. Frequently featured as a keynote speaker, he has addressed attendees at the Human Capital Institute, the Ascend Conference, and many other engagements. In his private time, Trey enjoys teaching introductory wine courses and is a WSET certified sommelier. He and his wife Shaya have recently founded Tyke Wines to produce and distribute interesting wines. Once again, help me in welcoming Trey, our guest on our show today. Welcome, Trey. Welcome to the Latinx Business Show. Thanks for taking the time today. I know you're super busy. You have about, 3 companies that you run?
At least sometimes it feels like more than that, but thanks for having me, Randy.
Yeah, no, I'm very appreciative of your time. So thank you for coming on this morning. So yeah, let's just get right into it, Trey. Thanks for being here. And tell me, what's your preferred pronoun?
He, him.
He, him. Okay, so we'll go by that. And then, one question we always ask everyone, right? I want to know who you are. People want to know, who is Trey? Where does he come from? So tell me, give me a little mini history on who you are and your background.
Yeah. So I'm a 4th generation Georgian, born and raised in a town called Valdosta, Georgia. I went off to school and studied history, politics, economy, all of that sort of thing at Emory University. And then after that, I wasn't done, so I wanted to do a little bit more, and I went and took a law degree from Tulane in New Orleans. And then along the way have studied at Oxford University, Northwestern, Georgia Tech, just picking up some academic topics and skills along the way. But, more than anything in that world, I think, the best education I've had has come from being in businesses and running businesses. And so, I run a coaching business where I coach CEOs. It's called Trinity Blue. And I have some other interests as an investor as well and that sort of thing. And then several years ago, I wrote the book, A CEO Only Does Three Things. And the message of that book, I spend a lot of time trying to get that in the hands of people that I think it could benefit.
I have a couple of little follow-ups. One, I do remember reading about your master's degree. You have some specialization in taxes, because that's my specialization. I specialize in taxes and bookkeeping, and I'm an enrolled agent for the IRS. So I got my license directly from the IRS. And I always have to explain that to people, right? Because not too many people know the difference between a CPA and an enrolled agent. And I always have to, I actually think that if I educate my clients, it makes my job easier.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I have selfishness, but also it makes them 100 times better client to work with.
Better client to work with, yeah. So I actually did a legal clerkship at the IRS when I was finishing my law degree. So I spent probably about 6 months doing mostly legal research, but also meeting with some taxpayers on behalf of the taxpayer ombudsman, so the taxpayer advocate. It was very interesting. Yeah, we were the problem office for a lot of cases, and so I have some service inside the service, if you will. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah. You have direct service. So my initial training was with IRS agents, because I worked for the city of Los Angeles and we did the VITA program. And so we ran the program for the IRS. So the first ever things I learned about the tax and IRS and any filings was because of some agents, the liaison office.
Yeah.
That ran the VITA program.
And we had the VITA program at law school, and it was for the folks studying tax. That was the preferred method of community service, because we had to have so many community service hours. Yeah. So we were in there filing taxes for people
Oh, that's
that
awesome.
didn't
Yeah.
usually didn't really need a CPA, but they wanted some help with some tax filing stuff.
Yeah. No, no, and you're right. It's not for the complex tax returns, the VITA program. It's usually for like moderate to low income families that qualify for it. But also, that those were my first teachings, right? So what better place to learn taxes from but from the,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
agency itself. But yeah, no, I saw that and I was like, oh, we're gonna have to talk about that because we both have a little bit of tax experience there.
yeah, for sure.
Um, but then, and also, we'll about your book. So we'll dive a little bit deeper into your book a little bit later. But right now, I guess my next question to you would be, how do you enter the realm of coaching CEOs, and then specifically, how do you help like Latinx entrepreneurs in this role?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I didn't start out to be a coach of CEOs. I started out to learn how to be a CEO. So, we had some tragic circumstances in our family where we lost my dad at an early age. And I immediately had to take over the family business without any, experience with that. And as a matter of fact, my dad had always said, like, don't do what I do for a living. Like, go do your own thing. Go be a
Yeah.
lawyer. Go do whatever you like to do. And he was in the insurance business, and we had a nice size but independent agency. And then all of a sudden he wasn't there, and the people that we thought would step up to do the work, that he was leaving behind, sort of weren't comfortable with it. They didn't want that job. They wanted to keep doing what they had been doing, and it was like it just fell to me. And I remember like accepting the job one day, speaking with the family and the people in the business, closing the door to my office and Googling how do you be a CEO?
Oh
And
wow.
for the
Yeah.
next probably 4 or 5 years, I kept a legal pad next to my computer. And every time I would learn something about being a CEO, I'd write it down. And I had this idea. My brother was in the business, and we had some cousins that potentially could come into the business. And I had this idea that I would just sort of at some point hand them that legal pad and say, hey, read this, and then you'll start off better than I started off.
Like a training book.
But like a training manual, for the things that we didn't have training. We knew how to write a policy. We knew how to call a claims audit. We knew how to do those things, and we had SOPs for those things. But nobody had an SOP to how to be the CEO. And so, I started studying it for myself, and then I would get into some industry groups, and they would say, well, hey, how are you doing this? Or what's going on with this? And I began saying, oh, let me teach you how I do this and that sort of thing. And it became its own coaching practice. When I realized that people would actually pay for that, I was like, wow, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And so I got a nice little coaching business. I still do a lot of that. And then, a couple of years ago, we started noticing that the communities that were buying the book that came out of that, which is called CEO Only Does Three Things, were heavily Latinx communities. And my publisher finally came to me and said, look, I think we should translate the book into Spanish, because there are a lot of people that would like to read this in their sort of first language.
Right.
And so that's what we've done now, and it's out now in Spanish.
Oh, that's great. I was gonna say, hey, have you ever thought about translating that? I have a bookkeeping mentor that I go back to all the time, and she really liked this book by this accountant or bookkeeper it's called the Number Phobic book. So she's like, you really should translate it. And she didn't translate it to maybe like 4 or 5 years after they met and they had that discussion. But it is really important. And I feel like more and more Latinas and Latinos, from whichever background or whatever culture you come from, right? Because there's so many different Spanish speaking countries. Part of it, I think, is necessity, right? Like you need to get out there and make money. And so you start your own business. You're self employed from day
Absolutely.
one.
Yeah.
The other part, it's like the American dream too. It's like, your parents come to this country from another country and you're like, okay, like I want more for myself, but not only myself, but my family and my community. And you're right. It's so funny you mentioned like, when I read that answer, I was thinking that kind of resonates with why I started the podcast. So I have my MBA, and while I was going to business school, I was like one of few Latinos in the actual classes.
Right.
I always
Yep.
felt like, hey, like if I was in Mexico, like my uncles are doctors, my uncles have like consulting businesses and rental businesses and stuff like that. So like, but I'm not. I live in America, right? I grew up here in Los
Yeah.
Angeles. So for me, I think when I really truly wanted to start the podcast, I said this is going to be a platform where information lives and it lives free. But also, after reading your story, I was like, oh no, like this really resonates with me because no, my
Glad to
dad's
hear
not a
that.
businessman here. My dad's an electrician, He learned the
Yeah.
trade from my grandfather, and for the past 30, 40 years, really 40 years that he's been here in the US. He's done well for himself, right? For being a laborer, but like also he never had really those aspirations of being a business owner because he always had to provide for the family.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah.
And it's a risk, right? It's a big risk to jump out there. To me, the message of the book feels the stakes feel higher in the Latinx community because, here's a couple of things that we know that all the new business formation in the country is being led by Latinx founders right now, right? So the number of firms being founded, if you section it off by each demographic, Latinos and Latinas are doing that more than anybody else. They're starting businesses all the time. And where are they launching from? They're launching from usually inside other trade-based or skills-based industries, right? So, maybe they're an electrician for someone else for 5 to 7 years, and then they start their own. We just had a lot of conversation with people in the roofing industry, right? They learned how to be roofers, and then they started their own roofing companies, those kinds of things. And we see that in a greater clip in that community. They're learning on the job. So maybe they know how to do the actual skill, but do you know how to run a company? And have you been to school for it? And, some of us are blessed to have done that. But there is no unapproachable magic to doing it, but it's just how do you educate yourself in doing it? And I just thought, and my publisher thought, look, let's get this into their first language so that they can learn the things that maybe we are taking for granted a little bit with our different backgrounds. And so that's why we came to it in that way. And, in writing the book, all I really ever wanted to do was to shortcut somebody else's path. Because I can't tell you how many cul-de-sacs I went down and how many dead ends I had to turn around from because I thought I was doing the right thing. And then I get to the end of it, I took the learning and then now hopefully can translate that for other people so they don't have to do what I did and they can go further.
Wow, Trey, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I truly do because I think that so many people need that guidance. And, I know that like one-on-one coaching could be expensive, but also like a book is a less expensive way for someone to be able to grab access to that knowledge that you have, right, in your head.
Absolutely.
And maybe you might not also have the time or you're already working with like 20, 30 clients and hey, the book will be the first step for someone to take. So definitely.
Yeah, and I won't coach anyone that hasn't read the book, of course, and tried it themselves. I don't think it's useful to bring somebody in and say, okay, well, let me teach you and charge you for my time to read, to teach you what's in the book when you could just read the book and then we could actually work on how to implement it. So it's sort of a cornerstone, a stepping stone into the coaching relationship, should that be necessary. Yeah.
I gotcha. Okay. Yeah. And all right, let's see. So let me bring up. So yeah, in your book, you say CEOs should focus on 3 things only: people, culture, and numbers, right? So give us a breakdown of why.
Yeah. So every time I tell a CEO, like, hey, you only are supposed to do 3 things, they're like, yeah, right.
Yeah,
right?
I know.
I have to do everything around here.
My brain is like freaking out because it's like, oh, people, culture, and numbers. I was like, well, what about all this other stuff that I do?
Or what about all these other 100 items on my to-do list, right? Yeah, but it's more of a concept of focus. And one of the things that I know from working through 10,000 hours of coaching, with CEOs is every single time you get this mission creep where you start doing the work of people that you have hired to do that work. And at no point do we check ourselves and step back and say, wait a minute, you're being paid to do this. Why am I touching it at all?
Right.
I had a call from someone in my company today, and he started talking about scheduling this social event and should I go? And I said, hey, man, do you think this is something that the CEO should weigh in on? And it caught him and he stood back and he was like, no, I don't think it is. I don't even know why I called you now that I think about it.
Wow.
So you have to sort of establish that. Now, if you're not doing that, what are you doing? You're doing the things that only you have the authority and responsibility for. And those things are running the culture and making sure that the culture is feeding people, hiring the people and making sure that you've got the right people on the journey with you, that the journey's right for you, it's right for them, and it's right for you together. And that's a trick. That's a real matrix to be able to produce that. And if you're getting those things right, you should be setting the agenda on what the scorecard looks like. And those are numbers, right? So maybe it's we sell, 15 new customers this month, or maybe it's, hey, we're going to make $100,000 on the bottom line this month. Whatever it happens to be, that is your responsibility and authority to say, this is where we're going. This is who we're taking with us, and this is how we're going to behave to the outside world, to the inside world, and between each other. That's the sole job of the CEO. In other words, you can't take and delegate any of that to somebody else and achieve the same result.
Gotcha. Yes, and and the reason why I can even see like a CEO freaking out when you're just like people, culture, and numbers, right? Definitely. I understand numbers, right? As a numbers guy, but culture and people, I think that's where it kind of gets like kind of blurry for me, right? Because I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I do so many things, but also, how would we translate this to like a small, medium-sized business, right? Because these are the
Yeah.
people who are starting these companies, and sometimes well, even with my experience, like, with the businesses that I work with or people that reach out to me for advice, I kind of feel like we are taking on all these hats, right? Like, I don't have like money for a marketing budget or a marketing
Right.
director to come in and help me with that stuff. So now I have to research that stuff, right? So how do we like
Yeah.
move past through all that, you know?
So you said the right thing. You're wearing different hats, meaning you're playing different roles.
Mhm.
What I'm saying is when you're the CEO,
Yeah.
the only thing you're supposed to be doing is culture, people, numbers. If you take that hat off by necessity, and you have to be a sales guy for the afternoon because you don't have enough sales guys, or there's more business that you can do, or you're gifted at it, or any of those things, you put on the sales guy hat at that point. The thing that I do with all of my coaching clients is the first 15 minutes of every day, before you get in your inbox, we go through an exercise where we say, how can you affect the culture? How can you affect the people? How can you affect the numbers? Right now, do that thing. And so I have coaching clients who are writing handwritten cards to the spouses of people that work for them, saying, thanks, your husband is really good at what he does, and I want you to hear that from me, right? I have them planning, it's, Priscilla's birthday party is going to be next Thursday. Please, everybody come to that. And I have somebody saying, hey, I want a sales report on how many lost sales we had last month. That may take 15 to 30 minutes to an hour in the morning
Yeah.
to affect those three things. Then you are allowed to take that CEO hat off and put on the other hat that the business needs. But you have to understand there's only one hat that you can wear at a single time. And you and me and every one of my coaching clients, we get confused with that,
Yeah.
and we put on two hats or more at a time, and we look ridiculous doing it, right? Literally, if you put two hats on, you would look ridiculous. Well, when you're trying to straddle two roles at the same time with the same energetic signature, you look ridiculous, and you don't do a good job on either
Yeah.
one. And so that's what I'm really trying to get people to step back and say, okay, today, right now, I'm going to be the CEO, and I'm going to act only on the CEO's items that we act on.
Yeah.
Later, I might come over and put on this other hat and do those things. But right now, I'm going to be the CEO first. And
Gotcha. Yeah, because and I see how like how hard that is sometimes for CEOs. So like you're talking about creating a structure where like there's a dedicated time every day where they are just focusing on people, culture, and the numbers, and then you can do like a kind of break it down. You could just do one item per one of those categories. Because I guess you don't really take that time otherwise, because you start putting on all these hats, and like as a small business owner you're just like, oh well, now I have to call I don't know, like T-Mobile, right? The telecommunications
yeah,
company, because this came up, or like we were supposed to not pay this amount or something like that. But yeah, I just find it like very important and very imperative for like any like small business owner to pick up your book, because I feel like there's so many things that we are doing wrong, or that we take on. Like I just even like thinking about this stuff, like right now when you're talking to me, I'm like, oh yeah, I need to stop doing that. Like I'm just like, you're right. I fear when I don't do something that it won't be done right, or the way, or I don't know if it's not that it won't be done right, but it just won't be done the way I would do it, right? And I always,
yeah, and that's a huge challenge for people, because look, there's all a personality type around people that start businesses and are CEOs. And we're probably super focused on everything being perfect at all times.
yeah,
And we are also arrogant enough to start a business. That takes some arrogance, some confidence,
right,
some extra stuff that maybe somebody else wouldn't have. But that also will carry us into, well, let me see the job that you're doing and tell you how I would do it. And that is one of the hardest things for my coaching clients to step back from. And we have a unit in the coaching section, which is this week you are not allowed to do anything but culture, people, and numbers. You must step back. And when they do that, they find out that Friday the business didn't burn down, right? It is still there. And they also have made comments over the years of saying, I had always done this process this way. And the minute I took my hands off of it and put it back in the hands of the person that's getting paid to do it, they do it their way. And we found out something new, better, worse, whatever, but we had institutional learning because of it, which is very valuable in itself.
Right.
So we see those things, come up all the time, but they are common struggles. We all struggle with staying in our lane because we think that we're at the top of the pyramid, so everything's our lane. But if everything's important, nothing's important. It's just whatever's latest and loudest that you work on. And then that's when the death spiral happens. That's when your business runs you instead of you running the business.
Right. Okay. So then in terms of a CEO's time, how should that be split across the three pillars at different growth stages?
Yeah, I think it's a good question, and I don't think that there is a right answer that says you should spend 30 minutes on this and 20 minutes on this.
Yeah.
I don't have that. It is very dependent on obviously the nature of the company itself, right? The industry, the time of year, whether sales are up or down. It's dependent on all of those things, and that's why I sort of carve out and say if I give you 1 hour a day to be CEO and 8 hours a day or 7 hours a day to be all the rest of the things that you have to be, at least then I know the CEO's job is being done. And so if that's 1 hour a day, or maybe it has to be 2 hours a day, whatever it happens to be, we absolutely must be working in that role on a regular basis. And then I really encourage people to take at least 1 day per quarter and leave the business and go do nothing but think and dream on what the business could be, right? And we have all kinds of prompts for that, and we have all kinds of schedules and things like that. But if I said, hey, Randy, I want you to leave your business, next Friday, you can't open emails, you can't return phone calls. It's as if you were on the moon. I want you to take this legal pad, and I want you to dream about what would your business look like if it was 5 times the revenue, 5 times the earnings, 5 times the people. What things would you need in the business? And how do you plan on getting there starting tomorrow? Then you come back and do that on a Friday because we can't stop dreaming. Once it starts, it has to reach its conclusion. So then you've got the whole weekend where that stuff's just percolating in your mind, and you come back on Monday, and I'm going to urge you to choose one thing and start building that one thing. And it's just, again, I just want CEOs to act as CEOs for limited times all the time. I guarantee you every single one of my coaching clients either goes to the gym for an hour every day or has quiet time for an hour every day, right? And a lot of them do both of those things.
Yeah.
But nobody carves out an hour to do the job that you're most paid to do at the same time. So we're prioritizing all kinds of things except the art of being a CEO.
Wow, yeah. And that's funny because so I've been part of a lot of business groups, and every person I met in these business groups, right, they run their own businesses. Yeah, we all work out at least 1 hour a day. Or if it's not in the morning, it might be at night when we get home. And also we all try to say it, even just dreaming about 1 day away from the job and not looking at email is sounds horrific. My brain's going crazy. It's I'm gonna get 1,000 emails. I have to clear this stuff out. I need to talk to the team. I need to they're gonna reach out to me on the chat or whatnot. So that alone, wow. I can see you putting your entrepreneurs on their tippy toes that day and just being
you get a lot of pushback from it.
Yeah.
The last day of discovery that I did with the CEO, we basically bring them into a conference room, we lock the door, and we're going to dig in and make you cry. We're going to fix this business problem today, and the problem is always the CEO. We're going to do that. And the guy that I'm thinking of was like, hey, what's the Wi-Fi password? I said, doesn't matter. You don't need it. You're not checking email, right? I talked to your assistant. She put an out of office on already, and when your phone rings, I'm going to glare at you every time you try to answer it. And he said, man, it feels like I cut my right arm off because we're too connected at times, right?
So
and I'm not saying connection is wrong, right? I mean, it's powerful stuff.
Yeah.
We're doing so much more than our parents and grandparents did. We're accomplishing so many more tasks. But it is an addiction when you can't sort of pull back from it for a good purpose of working on the business instead of in it, which is a little bit cliche, but that's the best example.
Yeah, no, I totally get you. So one of the business programs I did, the whole theme throughout the whole semester was work on your business, not in it, And, I can say that part of it, it depends on your business too. I feel like mine is very hands-on because I do taxes, right? So I have to speak to the clients and stuff like that. I'm also, like me, myself personally, I've been working on trying to get a whole separate team to input documents so that I just go in there and review.
Right?
And that was like my biggest goal from that program. And it's been about 2 years and we're still in the implementation process of it because there's so many other fires I think that I would have to put out, or that I put
I think
out one day.
it's a great focal point, right? Where is your highest and best use for your client who is trusting you to help them? Is it keying in numbers into spreadsheets? No, it is making sense in context of what those numbers say and mean and suggesting strategies and those kinds of things. And this is a hard truth, but every time you input a number in a spreadsheet, you rob that client of expertise that you could be getting.
That's really
It's
good.
a hard
Yeah.
truth. Yeah.
That is a hard truth, and I'm glad you bring that up because I cannot emphasize like once I moved over from doing returns in front of people, like because I that's how we started in Vita, and then I did a little bit of like H&R Block advisors, and then I moved on to private firms after that. I just saw like the world of a difference it makes, right? I'm not talking to the client in front of me, and I'm inputting, and they're asking me a question. I'm trying to respond, and like so many errors happen, right? And just human errors. But yeah, if you can say that one more time, because I think that's really important, especially in the business world.
Yeah, I talk about it in a different way too. Sometimes I'll have the CEO pull out a blank sheet of paper and say, look, tell me truthfully, how much did you make last year? Okay. And now tell me truthfully, how many hours did you really work? And then gross that up by 20 or 30% because you're still thinking about this stuff at home, right? I mean, there are times at 3 a.m. I've got to get up and write a note down because it just popped into my dream, that I'm supposed to hire this person or change this thing tomorrow or what have you.
Yeah.
We're always processing and working on those things. And then we divide those out. And I look at it and I say, okay, this says that you make, that you are worth to the company $300 an hour. So every time you encounter a task that you could pay anybody on earth less than $300 an hour to complete, your job is to let them complete it. Because your time to the company is worth 300. You create that much value, $300 an hour, whatever the number is. And it changes. I have $50, I have $100, 300. I have a $1,200 an hour guy as well. Those kinds of things. And if you use that as like a little memory trick, then the dumb things that you start doing as CEO that you have no business touching really jump up on you. And then you start to realize, and this is just another way of saying what I was saying before, every time you do something below that line, you are stealing value from the company or from the client or from your team, right?
No,
And
yeah,
when
that's
you do
powerful.
that, you're taking dignity away from people as well. So I get on a super big soapbox about this, right?
No,
But the point is,
I like it. Yeah.
do the things that only you have the authority and responsibility to do. Culture, people, and numbers.
Culture, people, and numbers. Yeah, and I can see that even myself. Like it's so hard to be like, oh, yeah, just focus on that. But like you're right. Like people are not coming to me, for example, as a tax advisor for tax preparation. Yes, tax preparation is part of it, but really they're paying me more money because of I've been doing this for 15 years. I have a lot of experience with the IRS and clients and resolving cases as an enrolled agent. But you're right. If I'm worried about input, then that client's not going to get the higher value of me. So yeah, I mean, they're still going to pay me my fee, right? So I can see
Yeah.
how you're robbing the client at that point. But yeah, let's move on to the next question. Let's see. So have you seen a CEO get distracted by things outside of those three pillars? And if maybe you could describe like a consequence or a situation where you saw that.
Yeah, let me tell you, I've never seen a CEO that isn't distracted outside of those three things. That's the nature of the role, right? When you're the head person in charge, somebody's going to find you and say, I can't do this, or I don't know how to do this, right? So I've seen CEOs get immersed in product level redesigns. I don't like the color of this, and I think it should look like this, right? HR policy stuff. I don't think we should wear jeans on Friday. I think we should wear t-shirts or something like that, Investor relations. Well, don't call him back. I'll call him because I'm going to see him on the golf course on Friday, and I'll tell all of those kinds of things. And again, these are not sins that are going to break a business,
Okay.
right?
Right.
That's not the point. But the point is, while you are doing those things, who's doing the things you're supposed to be doing? If they are handled and done for the day or the week or the month as as CEO, culture, people, numbers, then I'm a little more flexible with you coming in and saying that. I'll tell you, there were two great examples, happened to be the same guy. One of my clients chooses the coffee creamer that goes into the break room for his staff every year. Every year he takes about an hour and he flips through. The coffee man comes and meets with him. He gives him sips of coffee. Try this blend, try this blend. Here's the coffee creamer catalog. He likes to kick his feet up and look through it and that sort of thing. And here's the hilarious thing to me. I physically walked him in. He was telling me this story. His team was telling me the story. I physically walked him into the break room and opened the refrigerator. And he's got all of these nice coffee creamers up on the counter, right? So if he's doing that right, should I see any coffee creamer in the refrigerator? No.
None. It should all be gone.
It was full. It was full of coffee creamer.
Used, yeah.
Right. He was doing something he wasn't supposed to be doing, and he wasn't even good at it. Same guy. A couple of years later, I was doing his insurance renewal. We do the health insurance for his company, and I went to present it to him. One of the maintenance men popped his head in and said, "Hey, line number 2 is down." This guy gets up out of the meeting with me and 2 other people from my company and disappears. I'm sitting there 15 minutes, 20 minutes. At 25 minutes, I get up. I walk out on the floor where I'm not supposed to be because I'm not scrubbed head to toe. I'm not wearing a hairnet. I'm not doing all of that stuff. And this is a food prep business that he's in. And he's on his back with a wrench in his hand, working on this conveyor belt while his entire maintenance team is standing around saying, "Go, boss, go. You're doing a great job." And I left, got in the car and drove home. He called 25 minutes later. He's like, "Hey, where'd you go?" I said, "Man, I don't know what your time is valued at, but my time is valued at way more of waiting on you to do a job that you literally pay 6 people to do."
Right.
And he was mad at me for a little while, and then finally he kind of got the religion in that, yeah, I shouldn't be doing that work. I should be doing the work of choosing the health plan, which was really important to his bottom line that year. So I see that kind of stuff all the time. CEOs think they're being helpful when they start doing the work that they pay other people to do. But what we're really doing is training our staff to do 80% of the job, and we'll come in and do the last 20%, which is always the hardest percent, right? So it's always that way. And you see consequences. When you're not paying attention to the details, things happen. One of my clients, not the same person, lost their highest performing salesperson because she hit 3 sales goals in a month. Never heard from the CEO at all. Never got an attaboy, never got a card, never said, "Let me take you to dinner," nothing. Why? Because he was working on something that really wasn't his job. He didn't have his eye on the ball.
Wow, yeah. And then, that's a big consequence. I mean, losing your top sales person, right? So
huge, right? Yeah.
Just hiring someone, I know how long that takes to hire someone. That's you gotta go through all these resumes, you gotta go through like the people and decipher okay, or read in between the lines and see what kind of experience does this person really have? Does this experience translate? Is it really the experience we need for this role? It's so much work, right, to bring someone on, to have someone just leave. I don't know if I would have left that company myself as the top sales performer, but also that is she could probably just find another job as easily.
She found another job really quickly. And you know what you and I know? You lose a top performer, the person that you hire behind them is not going to be a top performer. Right? They have to season, they have to be in the industry for a while, they have to be in that job for a while, they have to figure it out, they have to go get all the accounts and all of that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. So there is no possible way you're that lucky to lose or unlucky to lose a really good performer and lucky enough to replace them immediately. It doesn't happen. So it is a real cost to the business.
No, that's a really good example. Thank you. All right. So the next question would be, what's one people-related decision CEOs try to outsource or delay but shouldn't?
Yeah, this one's pretty easy. We all keep people who probably shouldn't be on the team longer than we should. So we, the mantra should be, hire slow and fire fast, but we get that backwards. So we'll hire somebody just because we need a body to fill a space, right. And then we won't fire that person, for the longest time because we keep hoping maybe they'll get better. Maybe they're having a bad day and they're going to change, or, I don't want the discomfort of going and having a really hard conversation with that person.
Yeah, that's hard.
And so I just put it off another day, another week, and those weeks turn into months, and then you're 5 months in and you're like, wait a minute, this person shouldn't even be here anymore. And I've paid them 5 months more of salary, and the person that I could have replaced and had up to speed by now is out there, and I'm starting over from ground zero. So we see that a lot of times, and there's a real cost to that, right? Mm-hmm. So everybody in the business knows that that person probably shouldn't be there. So there's a morale cost. There's a performance cost to it as well. And then to some extent, there's a credibility cost. Like I work for a boss that won't make the hard decisions.
Yeah.
I don't want those decisions, right? Nobody likes to fire anybody. Trump was the only guy that liked to fire anybody when he was on the show, right? You're fired all the time. Nobody likes it.
It's really not the best situation to be in. But also, what about hiring family members? Because, so many small businesses hire like the brother, the sister, or the parent and stuff like that. So like, what's your opinion on something like that? Because I know that letting go of someone is hard, but also, what happens when it comes to family?
It's very hard. It is very hard. I was in my family business with family members for 15 years. So my brother and I worked side by side. He was my COO and I was the CEO. And 15 years in, it just wasn't working anymore. He wanted something different out of life. He didn't know how to go get it. It was a really hard and also difficult. So it was hard and difficult, meaning complicated and just hard to face in the first place. And he and I finally had the sit down meetings that were, look, one of us has to go. And either it's you or me, but we have to decide that in a way that we preserve our brotherly relationship. Right. It is really hard. And it is hard because I can fire somebody and not have to eat Thanksgiving dinner with them, right?
Right.
I can fire my secretary and not have to see them at family functions and things like that. I can't do that with my brother. He's still my brother. And so you have to really get it right. And we did a really good job for 15 years of not letting business roll over into personal and vice versa. And so we did a good job at that. And we did that because we loved and respected each other.
Yeah, that's good. That's good to hear that. Because it is, I do see a lot of small businesses or individuals that start a business, but then, and it's great. Like your family believes in you and they want to help and support you. And they're like the number one supporter. So they're even like my dad has always been like, what can I help you with in your business? Or what can I fix at the door? And I'm like, no, I run an office now, before I'm now here at this office, but like before, but yeah, and I'm like, how much do I owe you, Dad? Because he's an electrician. He's not like a handyman, first of all, right? But he can do everything. Yeah. So I'm like, yeah, before I needed your help, but not anymore. But also it's like, yeah, no, thank you for that. I mean, I think you gotta lead with love and like education and respect and honor each other's relationship.
But here's the other thing, Randy, and we run this in our company. This is part of our company culture. If I have a relationship with you that I honor to the extent that I am never going to be out of that relationship, right? Mm-hmm. Which is what we were just talking about with family. He's never not going to be my brother. But if I have that relationship with someone who I'm not blood related to, and I'm going to say, hey, we're never not going to be in relationship with each other, then I'm going to act differently in that relationship every day. I'm not treating people as temporary in my life. I'm treating them as permanent. That's why I go through so much hassle to hire the right person. I want to be able to love that person in the appropriate way, of course, in the workplace, right? But I want to say to myself, can I see myself being in relationship with this person forever? Will I go to their funeral? Will they go to mine? Will they know my children? Will I know them, in that way as well? Those kinds of things. And if you do that, you will begin to really improve the quality of your hiring and the quality of your relationships that you have.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah. And I appreciate you saying that because I feel like so many people are like, we just need to hire for the role, right?
We all do it. We all do it. It's never the right answer. We just need a body in that seat, And when you hire for that, what do you get? A body in a seat.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah,
or the wrong
that's not
body.
What you want.
You get the wrong body in that seat. Yeah.
It's always the wrong one when we make that decision. Yeah. Yeah.
Like in the last year, I've hired 2 people. And I really didn't realize like how long the process takes. But I hired a company that helped me also like sort through like resumes and stuff like that, right? So I'm like, all right, let's get it together. Next week we'll hire someone. We'll have someone here. And they're like, it's gonna take about 3 or 4 weeks for us to find the right candidates. And I was like, what? And then they gave me a deadline of about 2 weeks or less to sort through the resumes that they sent me. But then I'm very thankful that it took almost 2 months just to even identify who we were going to interview because they're remote workers. They don't work here in the U.S. for me, but one is in and the other person is in Nicaragua. And we work with a lot of Latino clients that are Spanish speaking. So, that was very important for me to do as well. But they have turned out to be the greatest. And our relationship with them is great, even though they're in a whole other country. But also, I have in the groups that I run in here in Los Angeles with all the business owners, I have heard so many business owners just say, "Oh, it didn't work out," but they did not take the time to identify the right person for the role.
We do that.
Yeah.
So we build the role out first, right? And are very descriptive and very focused on saying to the right person, this is what you will be doing. So don't interview for this job if you don't like doing this work,
Right.
because you're going to get a job that you don't like, and that's not going to work out for either of us. And then we do a lot of testing in the interview process. I have 4 different interviews before I'll hire anybody, and
Oh, okay.
sometimes 5 to 6, because I want them to meet other team members and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I always want somebody that I'm hiring to talk to someone who's doing the job and ask them questions outside of my earshot, right? I want you to meet personally with these people and ask them, do you like working here? How is it? What's the worst part of it? All of that stuff. I encourage all those questions. And then if my people like them and they like my people, I'm already a leg up when they start working with us. And in the book, in the people section of the book, I go through that hiring process. We start with a discussion of culture. Then we move to capabilities. Can you do the job? Right? Only then do we talk about compensation. Only after you've passed the first 2 phases. And the last one is a commitment interview. We sit down and say, this is what I promise you. If you work here, you're going to be safe. If you work here, you're going to get paid on time. If you work here, these are the promises that I make. And then I ask for promises from them as well. I'll show up on time. I'll give you my best effort, whatever those things are.
Yeah.
At that point, we offer the job. And if they accept, I already have their business cards printed. I hand them the business cards.
When they accept the job. Oh, wow.
Exactly.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've never seen business cards be printed that fast. Or they're usually once you get in the room, maybe in a month or a couple of weeks, you get
Exactly.
business cards.
Exactly.
I think I was at one place and I never got a business card, but I don't know if I ever needed it.
Right.
I was in networking, but there's a lot of places like that. And the reason that I bring that up is because there's so many small mom and pop shops. And a small mom and pop shop, it's not small by any means. These companies could be making $3, $5 million, $6 million, $10 million,
Sure.
$1 million. So they're big operations. It's just a small team of 5 or 10 people, right? So yeah, no, for me, it's been a very interesting ride. I feel like, even in the tax world and the business world, advising world, it's just been, it's all led up to what I do now, which advise small businesses, right, with their taxes and their team and even payroll and bookkeeping. It's just a lot to manage for a small business owner. But this is why I wanted to bring you on, because I'm like, okay, so I know a lot of small business owners take on all these small hats. How do we focus on these 3 things? How is it possible? But it seems to me like you have a whole structure laid out that you go through with your clients.
Yeah.
Because I just even looking at at the 3 pillars, it does make my brain freak out a little bit, right? Because I'm just where do I start? How do I do this?
Yeah.
So maybe that's where your team comes into play.
It is in the coaching section, but I also wrote the book so you don't need a coach. Mm-hmm. So you can pick it up in the culture section. Where do I start with culture? How do I pay attention to it? It's a step-by-step. This is very much a workbook-oriented, very practical. It is not me sitting on a mountain saying, maybe we should do this. It is, hey, if you don't have your values written down that are shared by everybody in your organization, you don't have a culture. Until you do that and talk about it with the team, and refresh it every week with the team. We have a thing that we call the Beatitudes. Those are our 13 value statements. Every single week, a member of my team chooses one, sends an email to everybody in the organization saying, here's the value that we're talking about. And this is where I caught somebody practicing this value well this week. So I noticed a teammate who did this. One of ours is be truthful. So last week's value was be truthful. And the young lady who was sharing was a customer service rep. And she said, hey, I had a really hard conversation I had to have with one of our accounts. And I asked myself, how do I do this? And immediately it popped in my mind, be truthful. So I asked one of the other people, and they told me how to tell the hard truth in a loving and supportive way to a client that was getting a piece of bad news, right? And she was able to call out that other team member. That's the way we practice culture. You start, you build it, and then you practice it every single week or day or whatever it happens to be.
Ah, interesting. Yeah. So you
So the book is written that way.
Okay, okay, yeah. So I mean, definitely, if someone wants to get your book or an entrepreneur, they don't have to be Latinx or anything. They could just be starting their own business. Where would they find your book? Like, is it online or is it at the
Yeah,
bookstores?
we do most of our sales through Amazon and Audible specifically. So when I first wrote the book, I didn't do an Audible version, and my publisher was like, "Look, man, you got to read the book." Well, I have a little bit of a Southern accent, so maybe not everybody
I was
wants to
gonna
listen
ask
to me.
you, are you the one
Yeah,
reading the book, or did you
and
get
I'm the
hired?
one.
Yeah.
I'm the one that read it because he said, "Listen, here are your voice talent actors that you can choose from." I'm like, "Well, I don't want those people reading my book." And he said, "Exactly. Read the book yourself because you know the important parts. You know how to phrase it. You know how to do all of that stuff." So we did that. When we translated the book into Spanish, obviously I can't do that fully
Right.
in Spanish myself. So we did hire a voice actor who doesn't sound like me, by the way.
Yeah.
And so those Audible tracks are where we actually have the most adoption of the books. Probably 7 to 1, because we're all it's easy to download an Audible book and listen to it in the car or while we're at the gym or something of that nature. A lot harder to pull a book out and do it in those scenarios. So that's where we see a lot of people getting access to the information.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I used to read books and now I just do Audible. And then now the only time I listen to podcasts on Audible is like when I'm driving at the gym, on the treadmill, or if I'm
Yeah.
hiking. And so, like, it's really interesting because, like, it feels like we don't have time for that anymore. But that's really where a lot of, like, hidden knowledge or not hidden knowledge, but knowledge is found, right? Especially for CEOs or for any business person. But yeah, I had no idea that your book was on Audible, so that's awesome. And people could either get it there. I'll put your website too, or you say Amazon, right? It's on Amazon, so I'll put the link on.
It's on Amazon, and I can give you those links as well. Yep.
Yeah.
And then the book itself has a website. A CEO only does 3 things, and it's got some information and some exercises there as well.
How does a CEO know if they're actually focused or just busy with the wrong things?
We do this exercise when I begin coaching with people. I say, show me your calendar and show me your inbox. If you show me an inbox that has 3,000 unread emails in it, right? If you show me a calendar that is either really too blank or really too full, we're going to start there. We're going to start peeling that away and saying, hey, I think it's time for you to have some hard conversations with key people, right? You're doing too much. You can't sustain that.
Yeah.
And we're going to have to either restructure the organization, or we're going to have to maybe hire some people. We're going to have to outsource some things to VAs. We're going to have to do those kinds of things. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is, I really want people getting into the habit of action where you are reinforcing the culture with everything that you touch. And I want you reviewing the data before you make a decision, because so many CEOs are just quick to the decision. So much of it is from the gut. And I'm not saying that they get it wrong, but it's a good habit to say, hey, before I make the decision, let me review this one more time. Let me just take one more look at the data and ask the data if it's telling me the truth, basically. If not, if we're not doing all of those things, you're just kind of checking the boxes, You're just kind of falling downhill and not even putting your hands up to brace yourself, and you're just going to fall further and faster. So a lot of times as CEOs, we confuse movement for progress, and I want to pull everybody back by the collar and say, just wait 1 second. Okay. Give me 7 seconds before you do XYZ, and question whether you are the one should be doing it, or should your next action be delegation, or should it be elimination, or should it be automation?
Right.
Instead of just diving right in and getting it done, can we ask that question really fast and get an answer really fast? And, our job isn't to stay in motion. Our job is to create direction for others' motion. And if your attention isn't advancing that with clarity, then you're just adding noise to the signal. And we don't want to be doing that because we are the ones that pay the price for it more than anybody else.
Yeah, no, I can see that. I think you mentioned something about creating dependency, right? Like on yourself. I can see how, as a CEO, as a leader, you want people to depend on you. It's a selfish trait.
It's a really dark thing, and I'm glad you can laugh at it with me, right? Because when we see it in ourselves, we're like, I don't want that to be true.
Yeah.
It's totally true. Yeah.
No, yeah, it's true. Yeah. And then that's kind of, I'll be the first one to say, I probably have created some situations within my own company like that, but I'll work on it. But it's just interesting, the feeling or being needed, or wanted, right? That's kind of like what we're after. This is the last question, but let's see. When a company is growing fast and everyone's stretched, what does a focused CEO do differently?
Yeah, a focused CEO does not match the chaos. Okay. So if you come in and everybody is spinning in a circle, and you come in and start spinning in a circle, you've done a lot of things. One, you've said spinning in a circle is the right thing to do, right? Not only is it the right thing to do, I'm going to show you how to spin in a circle like I want you to spin it. You're conveying the wrong message. You're supposed to come in and become the safe, still point that people can look at and say, okay, that's how I'm supposed to be. That means simplifying communication, reinforcing purpose through culture, reducing complexity, all of these kinds of things that most CEOs will do automatically if they don't trip up and slide down the chaos scale, right? So when everybody's spinning, I want you as the coaching client, to identify the few key moves that matter the most. Let's do the 80-20. Let's do the Pareto principle and figure out that if this is the chaos, then we can do 80% to fix it right now. And that focus is not about choosing. It's almost always about excluding, right? We don't want to do this anymore. Let's do this and let's just do it better. A reactionary CEO comes in and he tries to fix the spinning by saying you should spin faster or you should, spin to the left and not to the right. Mm-hmm. That's not the point. The focused CEO is going to protect that team's energy by pointing it into a single coherent direction. To say, that's where we're going. Is your spinning contributing to that or taking away from it? Oh, it's taking away from it? How might we get that pointed in a direction that would be more helpful, right? And in more extreme cases, hey, stop spinning, point it that direction, and get it done, right? Yeah. Whatever the cultural norm would be that gets that done. But you're supposed to be the calming, stable influence that gets us as a group to the goal that we've agreed on together.
Gotcha, yeah. And that's so hard to, kind of wrap your head around when there's crisis or you're trying to put down fires. But again, that's not a CEO's job. That's why you have all these people and all these different heads of directors that, they're the ones that should be making decisions, right?
Yeah, and I think it's a really good point that you're making, right? Like if a house is on fire, the fireman runs to put out the fire. He doesn't go get the fire chief and say, how do I put out this fire? Because the fire chief would say, first of all, you're fired. You don't work here anymore, right? But second of all, what are you talking about? You put out 10 fires last week. Why are you asking me this question? Every single time you're asking that question, you're basically saying, I don't have confidence that you're going to back what I produce. So, Chief, I'm not sure that you're going to think that I put that fire out in the right way. So in order to sort of cover my behind, I'm going to come to you and ask you how to put that fire out. It sounds ridiculous when you put it in those terms, but it is the truth in 99% of businesses that I see.
Yeah, and then I can see confidence and trust fading away when you go to your CEO and ask him those kind of questions. Because, you're right. I hired you to do a job, and I want to make sure that, if I'm not here or around, you're able to make that decision and take care of that fire before it reaches your desk. But,
that's right.
Wow, this is...
Randy, I don't have fires that reach my desk. Never.
Yeah.
Never. Because first of all, I have the right people on board. They know what I would do in that situation because I have articulated values that they can look. So they know this girl that I was sharing with, she knew not to tell a lie. She just needed help, not from me, but from somebody who had done it before on how to tell truth in the right way in that situation. She'll never have to ask that question again because our culture supports that. And if I've got the right person acting in the right cultural way, the numbers, I firmly believe, will take care of themselves. And by the way, that client could have fired us that day and nobody would have blamed them because they got a piece of bad news. Wasn't our fault, but it was still bad news.
Right.
They didn't. They renewed with us. And they appreciated the fact that she was able to be really candid about a really hard...
Oh, yeah. No.
So my numbers went up.
That's amazing. That's amazing to hear because it seems like, where was I? So I have a client who is new to the business world, opened up a gym, a CrossFit gym. And I think the other day in a text expressed to me and a group of friends hey, I've really been struggling to maintain a work-life balance since I started the business. And I was just kind of stunned and I wasn't not expecting that to come from her, but because we were all sharing, right? But also at the same time, I feel like that's also one of the biggest issues entrepreneurs deal with, right? Maintaining this balance between life and work. But that just made me think that the company she's built, she hasn't set that up to be running without her being there.
That's exactly right.
So I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, if she feels overwhelmed, she feels all the struggle. So yeah, that kind of goes to what you told me right now, which is like you have set up your company where like you can step away from it for a day, and like you're not freaking out. I am freaking out if I say I'm gonna step away from my company for one day because even on vacations I have my laptop with me, you know?
So this is funny. I just went to France. We went to Champagne for 12 days
Nice.
with a good friend and board member
Yeah.
of mine,
Okay.
right? I didn't receive a single call, text, or email that I had to answer while I was gone for 12 days. Every single day when we were finished touring and came back to the house, he had to jump on the phone because it was about, a sort of 10 a.m., 11 a.m. or something like that.
Oh, the time difference, yeah.
Time. Yeah, the time difference. So we got back to the house around 6 o'clock at night. It was time for dinner. It was time to have a glass of champagne. And he spent the entire time out on the front porch on his phone, barking orders, fixing problems, and all that kind of stuff. The fifth day, his wife said, "Hey, Trey, could you come sit in on a conversation with us?" So I sit down, and we're just there as friends. We're just having a good time. She said, "I want him to have what you have. How does he do it?" He's coming in literally tomorrow to meet with me and my staff on how to build that version of a life for himself, because all he did was rob from his wife and himself the value of that very expensive vacation, right? It's expensive to take 12 days anywhere, but to go to Europe and all of the things,
In France, yeah.
and he didn't get any of the benefit that we got. I came back to the office rested, ready to go to work. He came back as if he had never left. He just had 12 glasses of champagne more than if he had stayed home.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. That makes that is the American dream, I think, nowadays, because in the past it was like, working 80, 90 hours and retiring somehow. But that goal of what you have now, I think, is what so many entrepreneurs are or that is the first thing they think of like why they want to become like self-employed
Yes.
in their own business.
Yes.
But yet, then we all find ourselves super busy. Our schedules are busy, and like then it feels like you're trapped, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, people need
And the uncomfortable
you for that help.
the uncomfortable thing I have to teach people, right? And I have to remember this myself every single day, is you're about to make a choice. So if he hadn't answered that one phone call, would he have gotten fired from a client or something of that nature? Maybe. But if you adopt the idea that I am making a choice right now, and the choice is I'm not going to be available for 12 days, right?
Right.
You can do that, but if you haven't set up the business to support you in that, you've made a choice not to have a business that supports you in it. And everything we do is a choice. When I walk in and there's a fire on my desk or something like that, I can choose the way that I react to that. But again, I have to have that one level of self-control that most of us sort of just give away with no provocation. But I have to sit back and say, how do I choose to react to this? I'll tell you a really vulnerable story is one of my proteges who was working in the business really surprised us one day and quit. And I was sitting in the exit interview with her where she was telling me, I'm leaving and this is why, right? It was a cultural issue. And I said to myself very quietly, you have a choice to make in how you're going to react to this.
Okay.
And it helped me not get emotional. It helped me stay focused on her as a person that I wanted to still be in relationship with, of course, like we talked about before. And so it became very practical, and it didn't hurt my feelings, and I didn't go into some dark place where I'm saying, oh, I've run a bad business and she doesn't want to work for me, right? It kept me sane, and I did the right thing by her and for our business as well. And it was all the result of making a choice.
Yeah. And so, point there is we always have a choice. Whether you make one or you don't make one, it's still a choice.
You still made a choice.
Wow, Trey, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Randy. And thanks for, hosting these conversations. They're so important. And I hope the community benefits from all of them. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for joining me on this episode. Please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and share this podcast with your network. Your support helps our Latinx business community grow stronger with every listen, and I truly invite you to connect with us. Send us your questions, your comments, or even your own business stories to randy@rgtaxes.com. I would love to hear from you. Until next time, keep learning, keep building your business, and keep growing your business mindset.